So Reverend Brett, first want to say thank you for making time. I know that you, like a lot of our clergy, you have lots going on. And so I want to thank you for your time and all that you do for CAN and for Durham. And I was thinking about having this conversation with you in particular during this moment where a few days ago, Durham made history, just elected its first Black female woman identified mayor. And as someone who grew up around Black leadership in terms of in the community and elected officials, I think a lot about what that means in terms of outcomes for communities. And I also think a lot about what it means to center the well-being of those who sit at the intersection of the most marginalization and oppression, which oftentimes includes Black women, and how benefiting those folks often benefits a larger group of people. And so we're here because this morning, you, Bishop Clarence Laney and Pastor Tommy Grimm and I were prepping for Clergy Caucus, and you shared a really powerful testimony with us about your experience attending eviction court recently. And so just wanted to give you a chance to share that because one, we're going to be missing you on Tuesday at Clergy Caucus, and we'll miss you, but are glad you have some time for rest and respite. But also wanted to take the opportunity to hear that about that experience from you. So would love you to just share about what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, so it ended up being profound in many ways, and the obvious ways, of course, in that you're sitting in eviction court and you're watching people in such a intense moment in their lives, you know, of worrying that they're going to not have a place to live. What was so powerful for me, we were witness to 4 cases. And what struck me was at the very end, Jenny Loom, who is one of the action group, I think she is the action group leader for eviction court, is she not? Or is she?
One of them, yes.
Yes. And so she was sort of my escort in eviction court. And we were there with another member of the CAN community, a lay person from one of the other congregations, as well as another minister who I was not familiar with, unfortunately. But we met, and at the end of it all, she said she was blown away by what had happened. Because what happened was this magistrate found in each of the cases entered a judgment that was on behalf of the tenant and not the landlord. And Jenny said that she was blown away because that this particular magistrate, in the 2 years that she had been attending eviction court, always sided with the landlords. And what was striking to me when we were sitting there is that in between each case, he would look at me and explain what his thinking was and why he had the findings he had and made the decision he did. And I just assumed that this is what he did. And Jenny said that he never did that. And that she was certain that the only reason he did that was I was sitting there with my clergy collar on. And that he recognized, because she had introduced us as being there on behalf of Durham CAN, but she said she always does that every time she shows up. And most of the time he totally dismisses her or ignores her. But this time he was engaging in dialogue and conversation in between each case. And I just thought this was the way things were done. And she said it was not the way things were done. And so I just want to encourage everybody with that. What Jenny said to me, she said, you know, because you have that clergy collar on, there are people who are able to stay in their homes for another month or two. Because not only did he, this is the interesting thing, was not only did he find on behalf of the tenant, he actually even told them what the loophole was and how they ended up with extra time as a result of following these instructions he gave them. She said he had never done that before, never. So I guess I just want to encourage, I felt encouraged by just the moral authority of being clergy. And I just want to encourage everybody else who's on the clergy caucus with that as well, that when you show up, make sure to wear some form of your vestments, because these rooms are small and the magistrates notice who's in the room. So
Wow. How had you ever been to eviction court before this, or had any interaction or experiences with evictions yourself?
no, not at all, outside of seeing people have eviction notices posted on their doors, but not certainly, this was my first time at eviction court.
And in it, besides encouraging your fellow clergy to wear their vestments, anything else you would encourage them about either this experience, or I don't know if you've thought about, that how that experience continues to inform, your own ministry, or the life of your institution. And beyond, kind of the initial experience that you had attending as an individual.
Yeah, what I would say, so one of the things that I did was I used some of my chaplaincy training that I received, which is in verbatim writing. When you show up, like when you're being trained as a chaplain, you do these things called verbatims, where you go back and write down everything you remember about the event, including your own emotions and feelings, as well as the interaction between you and the people and what you see going on in the room. And so I took those sort of notes for myself to go back and review, because they sort of reminded me of the impact of the moment. It wasn't just held in my memory, but just recording what I saw, and even going and thinking about it later and recording what I saw and remembered was really powerful. I certainly, I will say that I got to appreciate so much more the work of our eviction team and what they're doing and the difference that they're making in people's lives, and why this work is so important. And how it might guide us as can in some of the decisions or overall actions we might take. And so one of the things that Jenny was saying is that it was important, that we were, and she said this to the magistrate, collecting information so that we could think about advocating for certain policies. And I sat there and immediately thought of policies that we should be advocating for on behalf of tenants. I was even struck by how the language and how people were being spoken to, like the magistrate saying, if you don't do this, they're just going to put you out, and it was just like, how demeaning is it to talk to someone like that, to just say you're just going to get put out like it was nothing. And I was also just struck by the people themselves and how they most often, a few of the people that I got to speak with, because I did speak to a couple of people, said they didn't know why they were there, and that they had been paying their rent, and that sometimes they were just late by a couple of days because of their pay cycle or some other thing. And it was just really profound how ridiculous some of that was. And so I just thought of, it's important for us to be there so that we will all know what to advocate for in terms of policies in Durham.
Well, I think it's really powerful to hear, one, about just that practice of that kind of reflective practice that makes me think about Reverend Condor sharing about his own experience and the ethnographic kind of approach to his own reflection and observations, and how important it is to spend that time in reflection, right, as part of the kind of how we talk about the cycle of organizing. And then also how it's spurring, a moral imagination, and what that looks like practically, in terms of this particular system and how it functions and operates, in a particular context. And then the third thing that you said that really struck me was the last comment. And I think it goes to this question about like dignity, that if we've accepted living in a society where we have evictions, what does it mean for that to be a process that still affirms folks' humanity, and their dignity, as well. So I'm grateful for your presence there, and your presence in Cannes. And we'll miss you on Tuesday, but thanks for taking time to share with us.
Yeah, and I'll be signing up for eviction court again. I just really became convinced that it's important to be there, important for me to be there. I think it's important for all of us to be there, you know, however we can be, but I certainly will be back.
Well, thank you. So, everyone watching, you can tag team with Reverend Brett and remember to wear your vestments.
Absolutely.
Thank you.